Hello, I'm Ben Tuman, and welcome back to Skipped History. The weather may be cold, but this new season will be hot. Today's story is about the Dulles brothers and their attempt to start a civil war in Indonesia. I read about them in The Jakarta Method by Vincent Bevins and The Brothers by Stephen Kinzer. Daylight is burning, so let's jump right into 1956, when the US launched one of the largest covert operations in its history. Backed by the State Department and the CIA, and with support from the US Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines, the US trained and equipped a rebel army of over 10,000 fighters in Indonesia. The fighters were supported by US submarines, B-26 bombers, and the most dangerous weapon of all, pornography. Yes, Sukarno, Indonesia's president, and whom American officials really didn't like, was a known womanizer. So to make him look immoral, the CIA hired Bing Crosby, not a joke, to make a fake pornographic film depicting Sukarno sleeping with a blonde KGB agent posing as a flight attendant. And because Sukarno was supposedly sensitive about his receding hairline, Bing had the Hispanic-looking actor they hired to play the president wear a latex bald cap to embarrass him even further. There was one problem with this plan, other than the racism. Few people in Indonesia actually cared about Sukarno's personal habits, and the film crashed and burned. But if this sounds like a screwball idea concocted by a couple of bros with way too much power and a fundamental confusion about the proper place to put latex in pornography, the hands, come on people, practice hygiene. Well, maybe that's because the entire operation was the brainchild of two brothers, Alan and John Foster Dulles. It was the height of the Cold War, and the Dulles brothers held massive influence over world affairs. Alan, the charming, gregarious, oblivious younger brother, was director of the CIA from 1953 to 1961. Foster, the preachy, prudish older brother, who was known for habits like stirring his drink with his index finger and stretching to reveal pale patches of skin, was not only the world's worst dinner guest, but Secretary of State from 1953 to 1959. And as you might expect of two intimately close and devoutly religious brothers, the two often only consulted each other and God on major decisions of foreign policy before getting sign-off from President Dwight Eisenhower. And that spelled trouble for a lot of countries, particularly Indonesia. After years fighting the Dutch, Indonesians won independence and elected Sukarno as their first president in 1949. He faced a tough task. Indonesia is an enormously diverse set of thousands of islands, spanning an expanse roughly equal in width to the continental United States, and entering the 1950s was home to hundreds of millions of people with various political leanings. On top of that, Sukarno had to guide the country through the Cold War, negotiating the interests not just of the two major superpowers, but four major domestic political parties. And Lord knows, having two of those is hard enough. So Sukarno adopted a position of neutrality in the war, neither aligning with the US nor the USSR. But when he tried to explain that position to Foster, he quickly discovered that one, Americans are too full of fear, afraid of BO, afraid of bad breath, they're haunted by the fear that they'll never get rid of dandruff. True. And two, if you don't go along with America totally, you're automatically considered to have entered the Soviet bloc. Also true. Raised in the Calvinist missionary tradition, Dull and Duller saw the world as an eternal battleground between good and evil, between the capitalist USA and the communist USSR. You were either with them or against them. And after Sukarno chose neutrality, he was firmly, in their eyes, against them. So in late 1956, in a consequential decision that there is no record of ever being made because it likely occurred in one of many private conversations between the two brothers, Alan and Foster hatched a plan to lead newly independent Indonesia into civil war. In the operation, called Archipelago, the US sent tons of weaponry to dissident members of the Indonesian army stationed in the country's outer islands. There, US operatives secretly trained thousands of fighters, providing them with rockets, machine guns, landmines, and grenades. The US also conducted daily bombing raids of Indonesian military and commercial vessels. In one of the only official accounts of Operation Archipelago, Foster is described as the most aggressive and consistent in forwarding this plan. Publicly, however, he denied any US involvement in the brewing war, classic, and he was backed up by publications like Time magazine, which increasingly framed Sukarno as a dangerous figure, and the New York Times, which on May 9, 1958, wrote that the US is not ready to step in to help overthrow a constituted government. Those are the hard facts. Even harder than the facts was the crash landing of a plane 9 days later carrying a CIA agent named Alan Pope. When Indonesian interrogators caught Pope, they found not one, not two, but 30 compromising documents, including a copy of secret orders, a log of bombing raids he conducted, and, I'm guessing, a name tag that read, "Hello, I'm in the CIA." What's more, it turned out the fighters the CIA trained were largely unenthusiastic high school students, and the proper Indonesian army put them down with ease. Add in Bing's porno not going as planned, and the very next day after Alan Pope was caught, the Dulles brothers pulled the plug on the operation. Even though they abandoned the bungled plan, does that mean it failed entirely? Unfortunately, no. Because if there's one thing the Dulles brothers lacked, other than common sense, it was regard for long-term consequences, and not just in Indonesia. Tune in next time to learn more about that bit of skipped history.